Hello, and thank you for joining this live webinar presented by the Cisco Learning Network. This webinar will be recorded and made available on the Cisco Learning Network, and information on how to access the recording will be emailed to you following the live session. Please allow up to 5 business days for the full recording to be made available. Thank you very much and enjoy the presentation. Hello, and thank you for joining this live webinar presented by the Cisco Learning Network. This webinar will be recorded and made available on the Cisco Learning Network, and information on how to access the recording will be emailed to you following the live session. Please allow up to 5 business days for the full recording to be made available. Thank you very much and enjoy the presentation.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello to everyone and welcome to today's session. My name is Tanner Swift and I'll be your moderator for this webinar. Today I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, Casey Hamilton, but before I hand the mic over to him, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover about this presentation. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available on demand after the live session. We will provide you with some of those details at the end. Also, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. During the session, if you are here on WebEx with us and have any questions for our presenters, we ask that you please submit those through the Q&A panel. It allows us to filter your questions better and to where our wonderful panelists can give you a response. If you experience any audio issues today, we ask that you try to rejoin the session, and if to no avail, please use the call-in number displayed on the chat screen. I will post that once again momentarily. So without further ado, would like to kick things off by welcoming Casey. Casey, right over to you.
Thank you, Tanner. Hello, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll start the presentation. So today, what we're going to cover is event management with Catalyst Center, scaling with APIs via PNP, and utilizing APIs and integrations for enhanced management with Catalyst Center. So today, it's not going to be solely focusing on the integrations, like actually integrating the various systems with Catalyst Center, but what it will be focusing on is what you can do after you've performed the integrations. So this is going to be more of a day 2 focus with integrations, event management, and APIs. Before we get started, let's go ahead and do our first poll. If you want to go ahead and take this, Tanner.
Yeah, of course. Our first poll question today will be one of 3, are all running through the Slido app. The first poll is now live for you to vote on. I will also put a link here in the chat screen to which you can provide your responses as well. Just to answer for us, what version of Catalyst Center are you currently running? We'll keep these polls active throughout today's presentation if you want to double back and answer them. Back to you, Casey.
Thank you, Tanner. All right, I'm going to go to the agenda slide. We basically just covered this. We're going to start with event management for Catalyst Center. And then we're going to take a look at scaling with APIs for PNP and then using integrations with Catalyst Center. So let's start off with event management for Catalyst Center and what you can get out of it. So event management, as you know, assurance is a feature within Cisco DNA Center that can collect a bunch of network device and client health telemetry information and then present it to you within a dashboard. Part of what it does is it collects notifications of various events that are ongoing in your network, and then it can prioritize them based off of P1s, P2s, P3s. And as you'll quickly see, we can actually manage which events are P1s, P2s, P3s as well. It also gives us the ability to go in and troubleshoot various issues with action items that we can do, and mark it as resolved, and then mark various notes that we can put on each event as they occur as well. So we'll see all this in action here as we go through this. But to access it, you can go to drill through assurance dashboards, issue events, and that'll take you to the dashboard that we'll be working with. Upon receiving an event notification to a specified channel, you'll be provided with a link to manage the status of events within Catalyst Center. And from here, if you see an event come up, you'll just want to click on that event, and then it'll provide a lot more details related to the event itself and action items that you can work with. Now, here's the action resolution section that I just mentioned. Once you click this instance, you'll see a little open icon over to the left right here. If I were to click on that, I could mark it as resolved. We'll see that in our demo here in just a second. And then we have our edit issue settings. If we don't agree with the priority level of a certain event, say this event was at a P2, we wanted it to be at a P1, we could go to edit issue settings and start managing that issue accordingly as well. Down here under the suggested actions, these are step 1, step 2, step 3. These are dependent based on what issue you're looking at. And there's also some suggested actions that are a little bit more, they'll actually trigger Catalyst Center to go down and run various commands on the network device in question. And then what it'll do is feedback that information straight into the Catalyst Center UI. So you won't have to actually go in and log into the CLI of the network device. It'll actually show you the data thereafter that you can work with. So here's an example of editing issue settings. You can see here that once I click the edit issue settings from the actual issue itself, it brings me to a new window, issue settings, where I can actually manage these. And there's a lot of filter options you can do here. You can filter by router, controller, access point, and also categories. So like things such as availability, connectivity, application. And we can see here we're working with the radius server is not responding issue that we were working with earlier. If we needed to, we can actually disable completely these notifications if we don't care about them. But for a radius server, I would say definitely that enabled unless you're not running a radius server with Catalyst Center. You can also change the priority levels here. It's currently at a P2. If you wanted to make it a P1, you could certainly do that all the way down to a P4. So it's priority levels, and that leads us over to the demo section for events. So I'm going to pull up our lab environment, and you can see right here I am running version 2.3.5.4, which is the recommended release for Catalyst Center. I'm going to drill over to assurance, then go to I'm going to assurance, and then go to issues and events. We can see some events here. So device time is just drifted from Catalyst Center, and it specifies which device in particular we're looking at. So we have one that's under the access role, another one that's a border router within Catalyst Center, and they are both P3s. I'm going to go ahead and click device time is drifted, and we'll get a little bit more detail here. It's going to say excessive time lag between Cisco DNA Center and the device, which is edge2.dcloud.cisco.com. So we're working with Edge 2 here, and I'm going to go over to the right. We can see when it first occurred, when it last occurred, get a lot of metrics there. And I'm going to click here and get a little bit more information. So here's that resolve or ignore section that we talked about earlier. One other thing is you have a little note icon here that you can click add on, and you can add things such as like a tech case number. It actually gives you a little critical changes, status. If a tech is currently working on it, you could add anything there, and it just adds a note so that other technicians and also the technician working on it has a reminder for what the TAC case numbers and stuff like that, so that it can help in resolving the issue. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, I'll see my suggested actions right here. And as I mentioned, there's some that are interactive. So check time on the network device. If I click run here, it's actually going to log in, and it's going to do a show clock and show the network time on that device. And now it's going to check NTP status if they're reachable. Shows clock is unsynchronized. So this may be something we may want to work with here and start drilling into how we can resolve this. Now, there's others that aren't as interactive as this. So things such as if an NTP servers are not configured, it will configure the NTP servers on Cisco DNA Center and the device, which you can do through network settings within the design section of Catalyst Center. But that's it. So basically you'll run through the workflow and usually this will help you resolve the issue. But what if I wanted to edit the issue settings? I could go over to edit issue settings right here. And it's going to take me to the issue settings catalog. We'll wait for that to load a little bit. And we can see fabric device connectivity, DHCP underlay. I'm currently filtering on this. You can filter by priority level. So if I wanted to do, let's say P3, I could do a P3. And I am now looking at all P3 related issues related to DHCP. So here we have a client DHCP reachability issue. If I wanted to edit this, what I could do is one, I could disable this if I don't care about it. Chances are I do because I am running DHCP in this environment. And then I can also go to priority and assign a P2, P1, P4, and then click apply. And then that's what's going to come up here in the future. So that's it for the demo settings and or issue settings and actually managing issues as they come through and what priority they need to be at. Next, let's jump into APIs with PNP. So I'm going to go back over to the slide deck. So we're going to look at scaling with APIs via PNP. First things first, when you're working with a Catalyst Center, it requires an authentication token in order for you to send other API calls over to it. So before you can send any API call, be it a GET request, a POST request, a PUT request, a delete, you would need to obtain a token for that device. Yeah, for ongoing API calls. And what you'll do after this is you'll actually take the token. You can see here, I'm doing the post. It is a post method, and I'm looking for the authentication token. You can see that in this request right here. And then what we're expecting a return on is a token. This token is going to be valid for an hour long. In your code, what I'd recommend doing, this is for security reasons because we don't want the same token for too long. Otherwise, there may be a security issue there. So what you could do in your code is you could do if statement. So if time equals, say a certain time, then fetch a new token and then embed it in my requests after that via my authorization header. So to get this token, you'll use your authorization. You're going to use your actual username and password for DNAC. It does need to have privileges to use the API requests. And then what it'll do is it'll return a token that you can use. That's step one. Step 2 through 5, we need to collect some data. So again, we're working with PNP. And if you're familiar with PNP, what it uses, it needs some data when you go in and claim a device. The first thing it needs is what site is it going to belong to so that we can assign a device to a site when we claim it. We need the template ID and a little bit more information from the templates itself. And the template's going to be that configuration, that base day 0 configuration that we push to a network device upon claiming it. So that network device automatically gets assigned to a site, gets its settings, its network settings per that site, and then also gets the configuration that it needs. So before we actually claim it, we need to obtain this information. The first thing we do is we need to get the template ID itself. And to do this, we can see I'm doing a GET method. Here's the URL, and the name of the template is PNP test. I already know the name of the template will be PNP test. Here we can see I'm actually using the auth token that I obtained in the previous step. And the return on this is template ID, and then it has this information here. So if I'm looking at it from a code standpoint, the key information that I want from this request is the template ID. I can then take this information stored as a variable and use it in my actual claim request, which we'll see in just a second. So step 3, we're going to get the list of template parameters, specifically the parameter name. So this has to do with the template as well. We're basically going to do another GET request, and then it's going to go to template programmer / template, and then this is the key information here. Similarly, you'll want to take the value from this information, assign it to a variable, and then use that in your actual claim request. And finally, we have us getting our site ID. So to do this, we have our, we use our GET request and group name equals RTP10. So this is the site that we are working with. It's coming up with a lot of information in the response. We can see the name of this is RTP10, and right under the name, we have our ID that we can reference. This ID maps to RTP10. And this, likewise, is something that we can save to a variable and use in that claim request. The next step is to do a pre-provision of the device. Now, at this stage, this is assuming that the device is not connected to the network yet. It's not powered on, but it will be soon. So this is like your planning stage. Once you have that information, what you'll do is you can see the method has changed to post. And now we aren't retrieving information anymore. We're doing a post request, and we're telling Catalyst Center we're about to onboard a device. It has this serial number, and this is its PID. And what that'll do is once we post it to the device, Catalyst Center is then going to give you an ID of that actual device that we told it's about to onboard into Catalyst Center via PNP. And you'll actually see at this point, you'll see a device that is in the status of unclaimed within the PNP inventory. It'll be unclaimed, and which leads us to the next step. We'll want to claim it. And what that does is it's going to assign it to a device, to a site, and it's also going to deploy that template configuration over to it. So we can do post has the URL, and this is the method that we'll use, PNP device site claim. Now we're taking all this information that we got earlier, say they're stored in variables, and then we're embedding it into a request. So site ID we have listed here, device ID right here, and then we have our config ID right here. This is all information that we got earlier, and the expected response is device claimed 1.0, and then you can log into Catalyst Center and see that the device was claimed, and then you can go to your provision inventory and see that that device is now in the inventory of Catalyst Center. So that's how the API calls work. You can get very programmatic with this. I'm showing you the responses through Postman, which is a really good tool to use for testing with APIs. However, you might, there's a really neat functionality within Postman and Catalyst Center where you can use this information and you can translate it into actual code itself. It supports many coding formats such as Go, Python, Ruby, all of this. You can select what you want to use. So the next section, that's it for PNP claim requests. The next section is going to be integrations for change management and issue response. It's going to be mostly focusing on the integration with ServiceNow and Catalyst Center. And I just want to go over with you a high level of what this actually does. So right here, we can see that Catalyst Center, let's say it detects that a software image is not a golden image within Catalyst Center. And let me give you a little bit of a rundown of what that means. If a network device is not compliant with the golden image assigned in Catalyst Center, then it's going to say needs update within Catalyst Center. So you can actually change which image is the golden image for a particular type of network device, and also based on where it's located. But the golden image will define what that device should be upgraded to. That way you can keep up to date with any devices that aren't in compliance within Catalyst Center. So what'll happen if you have ServiceNow integrated with Catalyst Center? It's going to create an auto incident. So Cisco DNA Center is going to reach out to ServiceNow and create an auto incident for a device being out of compliance. And it's going to draft a CR for auto generated. And then what will happen is Catalyst Center is going to suggest a remediation action to upgrade to for the golden image, and the CR will update with the remediation action. From there, the CR can be scheduled for a weekly iOS upgrade, a window, or auto submitted as well. And then the CR needs to be approved within ServiceNow. So this is your ticket management system. It's going to ask, and you can have your change management team either approve or deny the request. And then the maintenance window, if it is approved, will become active. Once that happens, the software upgrade will execute during the maintenance window that was specified in Catalyst Center during the time of the request. And then assurance will validate that the changes were pushed successfully. Once that happens, Catalyst Center will automatically send an API request over to ServiceNow, letting them know that the ticket can now be closed. It's resolved, the device has been updated, and there hasn't been any issues. If there has been any issues, the other really neat thing with ServiceNow is Catalyst Center will inform ServiceNow of issues that do come up for network devices during various stuff. But the other neat thing about Catalyst Center is if there are any major issues during the software upgrade, it will roll back to the previous version to ensure that there's no issues going on within the network after. And that way you'll be notified and can resolve the issue via ServiceNow as well. So that's the high level of what we're going to cover. Here's some API calls that Catalyst Center will use with ServiceNow. And you can also, similarly to how we are doing the PNP calls earlier, you can also do this stuff manually. You can create your own coding application. However, ServiceNow has a presentation within its dashboard that's very seamless. It's easy to use, and it uses it's not limited to this, but it uses a lot of these API requests in communication between the two. So we have things such as importing a local software image, triggering a software image distribution, stuff like this is used between the integrations, but you can also use this manually and get more information within the platform section. So for Swim REST APIs, here's an example of actually using one. Here I'm getting information, I'm getting an image importation. APIs can be used to automate the entire workflow for Swim. So this isn't the only API call. We're just looking to get some information here on what images are currently imported. And here our response is expected. We have the list of images that are currently imported, and we can import images if we don't see them here. Based on the image type that we want, we can import other images as well. So you can see here the image name right here. And that's it for Swim. And we also, another key feature is Swim events. Swim events are activated through Cisco DNA Center automation events for ITSM. ServiceNow. You can see this enable button over here. This needs to be enabled. What this is going to do is enable all the API bundles that ServiceNow and Cisco DNA Center are going to use for triggering events, announcing events, and creating CR incidents within ServiceNow. And it's going to start that automation flow. This is also the area where you're going to be able to create your destinations. This is primarily the integration part of integrating ServiceNow with Catalyst Center. So you'll click enable, and once it's enabled, you can specify your ServiceNow IP address, credentials, and various other information to get it working correctly with Catalyst Center. Here's an example. We're going to look a little bit more into this in our demo, but so right here we can see our source. This is, by the way, this is ServiceNow UI. We can see our source is Cisco DNA, which is Catalyst Center. And then we have our event source for Catalyst Center, which does compliance checks for software images. And then Catalyst Center provides the details of the alert. So let's say, a software image is outdated, which is the case here. It's going to give us some information. It's going to say, hey, this is your golden image that you have assigned based on this device type in Catalyst Center at this device location. This is your golden image. However, this network device is not running the current golden image, and it's going to create a request. And then you can either approve or deny the request, reject the request for an update. If you approve it, what it'll do is it's going to reach back over to Catalyst Center and ask you to go ahead and it'll go ahead and go through with the scheduled upgrade. If you deny the request, what it'll do is it's going to send a message over to Catalyst Center and it's going to show rejected. We'll see that in action here in just a second. Now, a little bit about the integration. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing you want to do is enable that bundle. From the bundle, you're going to want to create two instances. You're going to want to create a ServiceNow access setting instance, and you're going to want to create a destination to receive events instance. You'll create both of these, and here's an example of that of triggering an event once that integration's been set up. So I'm going into conf T and I'm doing it in interface G1015 and I'm shutting down that interface. So right here, I'm shutting that down, creating an incident. So what'll happen is this border, this edge becomes unreachable at this point, assuming there's no other cable connected. And border one is going to notify Catalyst Center that, hey, I've lost connection to this device. Catalyst Center is going to reach out to ServiceNow and create an incident. And then from here, we can actually view the incident on ServiceNow and manage it accordingly. And it also, a really nice thing is it's going to provide, similar to those of that event issue management we were looking at earlier, such as, checking the NTP time, checking to see if the NTP servers are reachable. What'll happen is it's going to give you that similar list of suggested actions, although this is a different event. So it's going to it's going to give you suggestions related to the interface and troubleshooting that interface as well, straight from ServiceNow. And then once you've confirmed the issue is resolved, you can go ahead and resolve it. If Catalyst Center disagrees that it's not resolved, then it's going to open up another ticket because it's going to detect that again here very soon as well. So a little bit of a safeguard there just in case it's not resolved. I'm going to go to the next slide and we'll just, Tanner, I'm going to hand it off to you for poll number 2.
Sounds good. If you are just joining us, there are a few poll questions for you to participate in today. You can also go back and vote on poll question 1 if you haven't already. Poll question 2 is now live. Do you currently have a ITSM instance integrated with Catalyst Center? Just a simple yes or no for you. You can use the Slido panel in WebEx to answer these questions, or you can use the link displayed on the chat screen as well. Right back to you, Casey.
Thank you. So I'm going to go into the SWIM and ITSM integration, which we're going to be working with a bit. We're also going to look at the events integration as a section of ITSM integration as well. But to start, I just want to reiterate the whole cycle of how this works. So we have the Catalyst Center detects the device is non-compliant with images. We'll see that here soon. Catalyst Center automatically creates an RFC in ServiceNow. The maintenance window is selected in Catalyst Center for the image to be upgraded. The ServiceNow RFC automatically gets updated with a planned date and time. The Catalyst Center updates the software after approval in Catalyst Center. Upon a successful image update, Catalyst Center initiates closure of the RFC on ServiceNow. This is exactly what we're going to be looking at in the demo, as well as a few other things. But let me go ahead and pull that demo up. And I'm going to go ahead and start it. We can see I'm running version 2.3.5.4 in this. And I'm going to go to provision and we're going to trigger a device upgrade. So I'm going to go to software images and click Edge 2, go to actions, software image update. Bear in mind, I already have ServiceNow integrated here. We do have other content that shows how to actually perform the integration if you're interested. And we can see that the big thing here is ITSM ServiceNow. Schedule for later if you do have it integrated, because of course it's not going to be able to upgrade until that change request is approved. So I'm doing this both for the distribution, which is getting that image on there, and then the activation, which is actually performing the upgrade itself. Click continue. And now what I'm going to do is go to platform, develop, oh, not developer toolkit. 1 second. Runtime dashboard. And we can see we have 2 different requests. One, you'll see at the end there, it has activation, and one for distribution. We need to work with both of them in order to get a successful upgrade. First, let's do the activation. You can see we have our ITSM link, the priority, and the ITSM status is set to new currently. That's going to change in just a second. So I'm going to click the URL. And we see that a change request is automatically created in ServiceNow. There's a change request number. One thing I need to do is assign it to a group. So I'm going to assign it to change management. And then I'm going to click that Cisco DNA tab. And it's going to give me information. You can see at the bottom, we have our running image that it's currently running, and the golden image, which doesn't comply with the running image, which is why we're upgrading it. So we can see the details right here of what's going on and why we're upgrading it. And next, I'm going to go to approved. Just the rejected. We'll work with that a little bit later, but for now, we're going to go to approved. Click schedule. You can see the top part, it changed over to schedule. And we're going to click implement next. And it moved to implement. Now I'm going to go back to Catalyst Center and refresh that page. We can see the ITSM status changed to implement. Now we need to do the same exact thing for distribution. We already did it for activation, but let's do it for distribution as well. So we can see it's at new. Look the URL. And we're going to assign it to change management again. Get our details listed there. And change that to approved. And go back up to schedule. Then implement. And back over to Catalyst Center, refresh the page, and it changed to implement. So that software is scheduled, ready to go. And we can see both the activation and the distribution are approved. So the distribution is going to happen at 10:12, activation is going to happen at 8:12. All right, so let's go back over to our software image management inventory and select Edge 2, the software image update status. You'll notice Edge 1 there, that's related to another upgrade that happened earlier, but upcoming tasks is the important thing. If you click upcoming tasks, you can see the start date and time of that network device upgrade for Edge 2. Now, let's go and do another image upgrade. It is actually nice. And this time what I want to do is actually go on and reject the image itself. So let's see that in action. Click next. Click submit. Now we're going to go back to runtime dashboard. And some more activation and distribution requests have come in. We have a new, let's click this. And we're going to scroll down. This time we're going to select rejected instead of approved. give it a rejection reason. Change to change management for the group. Click schedule. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. You can see it's set to scheduled. Go to tasks. And we can see that it is ticket rejected. So we got a notification in Catalyst Center from ServiceNow, and the image activation will not happen at this point. So the next thing I want to look at is generating an event. So we're gonna create an issue purposefully on a network device and review how that's going to show up in ServiceNow. We're going to go to Edge 1, hit Enable, and see what devices are connected here. All right, we have our borders. Let's go to interface G1022, and we're just going to shut it down and cause an issue. The issue, the border device is going to send telemetry information over to Catalyst Center, and it'll show up in these issue event dashboard. We'll wait for it to load. And we can see the interface is down for both the access role, which is the edge that we were on, and the core, which is connected to it. So we see it's down. Let's go to platform, runtime dashboard. And as expected, we have our interface connecting network devices down. That wasn't there earlier, but now that there is event triggered, we can see that there's two new events going on, one for the core, one for the edge. So it has our ITSM links there as well. I'm going to click the ITSM link, which will bring us back over to ServiceNow. A little bit of information there at the top and our issue details. And you can see under suggested actions, very similar to what we were working with earlier, but we can see various action items and the steps that we can do to perform it to try and resolve that issue. So that's all highlighted there. Very convenient for the tech that will be working on the issue. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the resolution code. But before I do that, let's bring that interface back up and make it resolved. And we're going to click resolve. And refresh the page on Catalyst Center, and those issues are now seen as resolved as well. So that communication is going on between the network devices, Catalyst Center, and ServiceNow. And that completes our demo portion. Let me jump back over to the slide deck to finish up some final notes. Before we finish up, poll number 3, Tanner, if you want to go ahead and take it.
Sure thing. Poll question 3 is now live for you to cast your votes on as well. How likely are you to integrate an ITSM instance into your network operations? Very likely, somewhat likely, not likely, or I have already integrated. All 3 poll questions today are now available for using the panel.
Awesome, thank you. And next, we're going to go into the key remember and finish up with this presentation. So the first key point is you can get suggested actions for resolving an issue by going to the link provided with an event notification. The second one is you can select the priority of various issues based on your operational requirements. So you may want to change a few of those and fine tune that within assurance. Now, be sure to understand the API documentation for what you'll be working with and obtain the required parameters via a GET request. The parameters can change based off of the exact GET request. So once an API has been successfully tested, you can then develop applications for efficient automation response. So that includes taking that test from Postman and moving it into actual Python code or whatever code you're working with. We also have our integrations such as ServiceNow greatly improve the automation of events and change management, as we just saw. And then leveraging ServiceNow integration for CMDB asset management, issue handling, and change management can greatly improve your network operations and management. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you, Tanner.
Sure thing. Really appreciate it, Casey. Just as a reminder for our attendees, we are closing in on our Q&A portion of today's webinar. If you do have a question, please submit that through the Q&A panel. It allows us to help filter some of those questions just a little bit better. Casey, we'll look back at some of these poll questions here in a few minutes, but would like to get to a couple questions here, starting with, why do I need to get parameters before performing an API claim for PNP?
So Catalyst Center needs identification of the configuration you wish to push. So it's going to be stuff like sites, template IDs. And without this, Catalyst Center won't be able to provision a device because it's not going to know, hey, what site this device needs to go to, or, what configuration I need to add to this device. So you can create various templates and sites in Catalyst Center via post, and then use some GET requests to obtain those site IDs and template IDs, and then push them over to actual network device.
Great, thank you. Let's get to this next question here. How long is the authentication token valid for?
That is valid for 1 hour. It's for enhanced security, so it changes every hour. In your code, what you can do is you can create an automation task for obtaining a new auth token before this time frame is exceeded. That way the application doesn't break. And then embed it into the new authentication header for a variable, and then use that into ongoing API calls. And then what it'll do, it's going to repeat that process at right before the top of the hour.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Here is another question. I have a particular integration I'm interested in that isn't covered here. Do you have content available on that?
Yes, we do. So we have it for every integration to date. So every integration, there are 14 different integrations available that you can perform with Catalyst Center. So definitely speak with an account manager and get set up with some of our training content on that. I know we're going to be having more webinars related to this as well. So feel free to ask and set that up if you're interested in any other integration that hasn't been covered here.
Great, thank you, Casey. I know we've had a few questions about where this playback will be available at. I'll provide you some details as well as a post-webinar discussion thread that you can follow up on that has some of those details as well. Casey would like to walk through a couple of these poll questions and just share the results with you if that's okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Great. Let's start with poll question 1 from today's session. And just as a reminder, it's not too late to vote on these questions. The link is live in the chat screen as well as the Slido panel here on WebEx. Question 1 was, what version of Catalyst Center are you currently running? Leading the way at 57% was the 2.3.5x, followed by 2.3.3x at 21%. And then 11% respectively for 2.2.3 and below. Let's see, poll question 2 here. Do you currently have a ITSM instance integrated with Catalyst Center? 18 votes on that, all 100% actually at. And poll question 3, how likely are you to integrate an ITSM instance into your network operations? 19 votes at 42% were very likely, 32% somewhat likely, and 25% not likely. And none already have an ITSM instance integrated.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanner. Well, I hope this was informative for you. If you have any interest in learning more about the ITSM integration, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of webinars coming up soon where we can actually go through that integration process with you and get it set up.
Beautiful, and we'll keep you all updated through the Cisco Learning Network as well as to when you can expect when those webinars are coming up, you can register for and place them on the calendars so that you do not miss them. Casey has just placed a number of links and resources for you in the chat screen. Those links and resources will also be available on our post-webinar discussion thread here shortly. I will send you all the link to that here in a moment via the chat screen. No questions have come through here at the moment, Casey, so just wanted to give you the floor once again. Is there anything else that you would like to cover here before we wrap up?
I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you got a lot from this session. Keep your eye out for more webinars we have coming up, and thank you to our panelists as well. Really appreciate you. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks so much, Casey. Yes, just as Casey mentioned, we have a full list on the Cisco Learning Network of upcoming events. We'll provide that link here for you in the chat as well that you can go register and look out for. And I think that has covered it for everything that we wanted to cover today. Casey, want to say thank you once again. Thank you to our panelists and the whole team for bringing your knowledge to the Cisco community. If you do have a question for Casey, we'll keep that Q&A window open for a couple more minutes. For even more tutorials, demonstrations, and future webinars, please visit the Cisco Learning Network. As I mentioned, that post-webinar discussion thread is now live and available in the chat screen. You can follow up with any post-webinar questions, thoughts, comments, as well as catch any resources and the playback for today's session on that thread as well. Your feedback is important to us, and at this time, you'll be directed to our post-webinar survey. Please take a few moments to fill that out. Helps us prepare future sessions. Once again, we thank everybody for joining us. We will see you next time on the Cisco Learning Network.